Well, I think that at this point, we're at this phase of knowledge, a stage of knowledge where everything happens very quickly. We've already seen it in different types of transformations. The Industrial Revolution, which started in 1780 until 1850, that was the first one. And now what we have is disruptive change in the way that industries tackle their problems. Between DILE to talk to you about what our company is. So we have been working on the science of data from a perspective that is exclusively focused on the information that has been compiled during the past 10 or 20 years from big institutions, but we have also worked with small institutions that have been 2 or 3 years in the market. We have had a good experience. We have done very well with the applications that we have developed. The artificial intelligence market is just beginning. And in that environment, I have begun to study a bit more about the insurance industry. I have ran into this type of feedback from Dan Ariely, who talks about processes that the industry has to begin changing because the digital era is demanding other type of actions because they have different types of needs, and that is what has led us to use technologies like Lemonade. For example, Lemonade closed about 80 uh, policies in just one day at cost, that you would think. I never thought that this person in Manhattan could acquire an insurance that costs $25 a month instead of $1,000 a month, which is what they used to pay before. Now, learning an insurance is very short. It's a social digital transformation that is leveraging the other technological knowledge, and that leads you to have people who are left in this point, the point of no return, the point where they simply die because they cannot survive if they don't change. I think that you should train to face your challenges. Now, social networks allow you to generate context in a question of seconds. On machine learning, I'm not going to explain the details of machine learning. There's different techniques that you can use for that information. Machine learning means predicting and understanding the predictions. If I go see a client that is going to drop out in 30 days, for me, it's not so important to know about the person. What is important is that I'm strategically prepared, and the strength and the sales force also are prepared to face the new needs. We did an exercise in Mexico with GMP, and we analyzed a database of 500,000 users where the challenge of the organization was to predict which of them were going to use a policy or not in the next 60 or 90 days. And as part of that process, we discovered that the first thing we have to do is understand the information. The information is the core that organizations currently have to be able to face this learning curve of digital transformation. And many of the companies that currently work with artificial intelligence are doing this, the machine learning, but it's important to understand what the information is and where it comes from in order to apply the science of data. That is what machine learning needs. Once I understand those contexts of information, I can scale up the information, and that's what machine learning and automation really become very important players in, I don't know, using the cloud or generating transparency in the processes or whatever I decide to do. Now, this is the access to the platform. Our platform is very basic. We've been in the market for a year and a half, and but we need to concentrate in really understanding the information so that our clients can actually use in a strategy of marketing and sales. And these are the most important variables. In these important variables, we not only have a 95% of effectiveness in the prediction, but we have a map actually of what it is that the person in their probability of using or not that policy are affecting. Uh, Then we have the first line. We're showing the infants from 0 to 2 years. These are the toddlers. And you have adults that are influencing the acquisition of that policy. And month two, the information changes, the data change. We're talking about the demographic data of masses. Here we have a child from 3 to 5 years. Those generate a high probability of the person taking an insurance policy, but we also have other information. All this information is correlated, and that is what we do with data science. We find those correlationships and we deliver the organization a strategy that is effective enough to begin by displaying new products. In this case, we told them, well, look, there's new families with children should own an asset, especially cars. In the previous slides, it said that it was important for these families to have a car. And also the geographic aspect is very important. The geographic factor is key in the social dynamics because of the strata, the temperature, the weather, all that. But we should not just stop there. One thing is to say, okay, we learned that. We learned that with our clients. This is what you should do, and we wanted to influence it in 85,000 people with that theory. But what can you do after that? We have 85,000 people that we can influence, but we have the remainder, which is 415,000 people, and they're not even in the map. And so we begin to develop better technology. In the past year, we have also been working with car policies. We realized that in Mexico, for example, there's great potential in the market for vehicle policies. 2 or 3 vehicles are insured in Mexico. We think that now the proportion has increased to 4 or 5. And there's a big challenge there because the services provided by the insurance companies should be focused on solving this kind of problem nowadays so that people don't even have to be a part of a commercial proposal or talk about things that actually nobody else cares. And we begin with a process of detecting to begin to use what the machine learning helps us find in order to get to know uh, our partners, our spouses, our children in real time. And digital transformation is happening around with how much I can monitor my users in real time. Here we can have in real time how much it increased and what is the future dimension of that accident. There's a Spanish company called Video. Through artificial vision, they can identify the various types of dents that an accident can generate in a car and then generate an automated taking of the car to the workshop to solve the dents. Now, this all takes two paradigms. And Media, which was a company that went to selling $800 million in a year by Evidia. Evidia, I don't know if you remember, but at least when I was a kid, I began working as a gamer and I would buy the card to get better benefits in the games. Now that has improved so much that with this card, Tesla is doing all of its automation process in cars. And this is just the beginning. All this is a race that is going to dynamize as the industries, as the financial industry begin to adopt the technology, emerging technologies quickly. And I'm impressed when I talk to insurers. Our largest portfolio of clients is in the bank. And when I talk to the banks right now, I know that they cannot do such a quick transition to this type of technology because of their different composition in the company. But it is important for this type of thing to begin to be a part of another way of looking at processes in the insurance industry, especially the topology. Topology is key because it tells me what I can begin monitoring to extract information that is a commercial identification of what I definitely want to transmit to the users. And there's many things that improve in these processes, but we have something more important which that all companies have to work on, and that's the legacy. And so when companies say I want to apply machine learning, well, that's great, but where do you have the information? Where, how in the history of the company, who composed it, who discovered it, who invented it, and why can't we update it? We have talked to many directors of technology, and he knows that with the apps he can take that, he can use that. But when you go to the depth of the problem, you realize that the data are not well organized and that the data come from something that the company built based on and very strongly convinced that the steps they were taking were the correct steps. But that was 5 years ago. That was 10 years ago actually, and it ended with the arrival of the cloud, the first cloud drafts that IBM and ASUS did. And something that is very important, which I have also analyzed in the transformations I have in the industry, are the way in which companies like Alibaba have faced this problem of exchanging legacy systems. Is there some? Can you hear me?
We second after Walmart, I remember one of the senior management of Walmart guys came to Hangzhou 5 years ago. He said, "Jack, you do a great job," and blah blah blah. So I said, maybe in 10 years we'll be bigger than Walmart. He said, "Young man, you have a good hope." So we said, make a bet. I think in 10 years we'll be bigger than Walmart on the sales, because if you want to have 10,000 new customers, you have to build a new warehouse and this, that. For me, 2 servers.
See, yes, 2 servers, that's all we needed. And we've ran the experiment with other clients. Now, there's big companies that have a whole lot of people, and they cannot do these transitions overnight because of the regulations, because of the various structures and architectures they have bought in time. Jackman became the second retailer in the world with a strategy that said we have to put this, we have to digitalize it. I have to use the least amount of human resources, because human resources, when they are not well qualified or skilled, they become a load. In that transition, well, we have a way of coping with issues. One is the iterative vision, like in the industry of rockets. During more than 60 years, rockets had the same shape, the same characteristics. The people who worked in this industry were focused on escalating the power of the engine motors and deal with the world scale problems like a nuclear war. And so people began to face this type of issue, investing more and more in this technology, but they were not facing the real problem. The problem, whatever is finding out what is required to be exoplanetary. And in that case, we needed solutions that were flatter, that were more economical. The cost of construction of these huge rockets should be low, and we should optimize the way that the message was delivered to people. During a long time, the aerospace issue was difficult to communicate. Why is it important for us to be in the moon? Why is it so important that these became an electroscan of magnetism? Because that was very important back then for us. And here, in only 14 years, they have been able to reuse a rocket, and they reduce almost 40% the cost of the entry of a human being into the outer space. And because what you say is, I have to change now, because if I don't change now, the big companies begin to reduce their numbers. For this, it's very important for the industries now to think about the science of data from the standpoint of personnel, treating with data scientists who are actually capable of taking that information that already exists to model it, optimize it, generate more efficient tools. And beyond that, we have the artificial vision, etc., but that's the core of it. And within that core, Colombia has an important role because there are no data scientists right now. We are in a process, in a contracting process. I think that we all share this environment, but we found nobody who can shorten that learning curve for us. And that is why we do this type of contract. And that has to go hand in hand intrinsically with the psychology of behavior. In this case, Lemonade in Manhattan. And that is one of the reasons why they were so successful. And one of the reasons was why they had to influence on the normal behavior of people. And they had the ability physically of modifying that question before it adjusted to their needs. And it is so important because, well, in Colombia, you have had the experience of launching many products, and many of them don't work. Many do. But we cannot get used to the fact that it's always going to work. The industry is progressing constantly in that curve of digitalization, and we have to be up to date. But we also talk about other methodologies which are linked to artificial intelligence. As you could see within our walkthrough, the technical walkthrough of this type of proposals, we realize that everything is focused on math. Math is a tool that human beings started to discover because they needed to understand their surroundings, their environment in a different manner, and that has led us to very high technical standards. And on planet Earth, there has never been a disruption in the environment as there has been during the past 200 years. We generate an ecosystem focused on human beings. And at this point, we are coming back to different tools that naturally, blockchain, for example, is an algorithm which by nature evolved from the evolution strategies that we took from the university in order to solve problems. In the end, everything is nature, but it's not just crypto coins that you can exchange at that level. It's basically the changes that you find in the industry and that can end up giving you instantaneous ID systems. What do I refer to with this? We have the artificial ID. Artificial ID generate data patterns that we use to make our analytical problems more understandable. And there's a challenge in making this instantaneous for people to interact with the product since the minute they have the application and generate an immediate insight, both for the organization that is good for them and the products also. Additionally, we have new technical challenges. We have a quantic cryptographer that helps us foresee what is coming for the coming 5 or 6 years. And it is very important then to have a true relationship with the people next door. But the person that is going to administer these technologies for us is basically I am the machine, a quantum leap that we were trying that we were trying to ensure with the photon. The photon is unhackable up to where we know because it goes from one side to the other, and besides, it's light. How can you hack light? That is what quantum cryptographers are asking right now. You run into research articles, and this is what you find. But for that, we have to be very clear about what we want because in 2030, there are going to be different transitions in the industry. And those transitions are going to be very similar to the case of Jack Ma. And in order to become the second retailer in the world, they had to see things from a different approach. And the disruption happens when we leave whatever is there, and when you leave whatever is there, it has a big cost back there. It's like when you end up a human relationship. If you suddenly go and break up, well, you are doing away with something that was accumulated through lunch and dinner and being together for a little while every day. I remember when Conavi was in Colombia. Conavi was one of the few products that would allow you to come to the bank and come out 5 minutes later, having deposited a bank. The other banks would keep you there for a half an hour until your product was deposited. Now all that is in a cell phone. And then we are going to have different types of applications, like Alexa, for example, with Union Credit, they have a product where you can give the instructions, but it's only me. I have access, for example, through my fingerprint and my voice to all my products. And that is what is going to continue being done. And there may be other technologies which don't require voice or Facebook or anything, or no, that is economic. It's only economic, and all these applications have a great impact on the industry. Artificial intelligence includes many applications that require new information. And going back to the importance of hiring data scientists in a practical exercise, we analyze financial transactions. I know it's an issue that doesn't involve most of you, but we're talking about masses, and masses they behave similarly. We build in artificial intelligence in human beings so that they can naturally analyze some processes, and it also requires being versatile. It is very clear to us that the cloud is fundamental. Whatever is not in the cloud these years is something that is not going to have any scalability. And now we're trying to get all the products to be scalable. A monitoring camera of an accident is key to record a dealer. And we have in our webpage, if you look under Google, and this is going to look like a reggaeton. No, that is not what we seek. But on the page, we have some success cases that I'm sure you are going to love. This is the way to focus on a data issue, and machine learning is very clear when it talks about this digital transformation for industries, and the idea is to adapt yourselves to this transformation. What is the largest insurer going to do in 2030? I think that all of us are key to become a part of it. It's been our job forever also. And it is going to keep these technologies that we're talking about and many others. It would be impossible not to be here and thinking that it would be interesting to hire a quantum technologist for the company. I can solve it now. And I think that we have seen many cases of success many successful cases about how to cope with a theft at this level. That is what entrepreneurship has taught me so far. That you always have to be observant into the future. Not only observant, but also you have to experiment. I think that from the presentations we've seen so far, the big mistake has been incredibly fruitful. The truth is, and it has taken us to work with big clients from scratch, and it is that we make mistakes very quickly, and you can't be scared of mistakes if you hire the wrong person. I mean, all you do is you iterate, and that's it. You take another path. That has to happen very quickly because Colombia is a little bit isolated still from what is going on in the rest of the world at the practical level. We have Google, but that's not enough. We need to also prepare those people who are in the organization so that we can advance more and be more successful. So thank you very much for this space to address you, and I hope that we all get to 4.0 technologies very quickly.